Praise Yahweh.
Welcome to the Yahweh and Yahshua Speak television show. We are broadcasting live from Yahweh and Yahshua's temple in Evanston, Illinois. And we are doing an updated version of a show that we did about a year ago. And we had a lot of people requesting the show. And for some reason, we no longer are in possession of the show. So we are going to do this updated version. And this is called, "And the Evening and the Morning Were the First Day." The evening and the morning were the first day. This is a remake of A Time to Every Purpose under Shemaiah. What Yahweh is showing us is the fact that He does things decently and in order. And He does things in a cyclical nature. And when He created, at the creation location where Yahweh instituted time, we can see it in Genesis, the first chapter, and He lets us know where it is exactly in Genesis, the second chapter. Evening and sundown or sunset coincide perfectly with each other. And at that first location, the beginning creation location, they still perfectly coincide with each other. We had left off in Genesis or Bereshit, the first chapter, and we were looking at the fact that Yahweh brought the evidence that He created time without the sun being created. He made it clear that the sun was not involved in the first chapter of the first book of the Bible. And we saw that He did not create the sun until the fourth day. And even after He created the sun, He continued to make the statement by which He instituted time. And He said, "The evening and the morning were the fourth day." Let's start out in Genesis, the first chapter. And we're going to read verses 18 and 19. Genesis, the first chapter. "So even Yahweh, after He created the sun on the fourth day, still used the phrase that He has since the beginning when He instituted time, that the evening and the morning compose a day." So Yahweh Himself closed the door on the sundown to sundown theory. And at the end of the last show, we had said that a theory is a supposition based upon ignorance of the subject under discussion. So the theory that sundown is equal to evening shows that we lacked understanding. I say we because we used to observe Yahweh's days from sundown to sundown, which we don't anymore. But we see and we saw that it was Yahweh who kept confirming that the evening and the morning constituted days. Genesis, the first chapter, and let's read verses 18 to 19.
"And to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Yahweh saw that it was good."
19.
"And the evening and the morning were the fourth day."
So here is Yahweh saying that He made these great lights. One was to rule over the day, and one was to rule over the night. And when you read the entire chapter of Genesis, you find out that it was the sun to rule over the day, and the moon to rule over the night. But that we can't jump to the conclusion that just because He said they rule over the day and rule over the night, that now we are to watch the sun to find out when a day ends or when a day begins. Because we see in verse 19 Okay, he said it was good. He made this light to rule over the day and one to rule over the night and to divide the light from the darkness. It's good. It's told. But then in verse 19, he reiterated and confirmed what he had been saying since the beginning of the chapter. And the evening and the morning were the fourth day. That's the title of this lesson. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And that's the phrase Yahweh made after every single day that he made. Let's go to Isaiah or Yeshayah 45. And what Yahweh showed us, as I said again, we used to observe days from sundown to sundown because we, as Yahweh showed us, away from the Garden of Eden, from the place where Yahweh first instituted time, we, coming up out of deception, assumed that sundown meant looking at the sun go down and the sky get dark. But at the perfect location, which Yahweh showed us in the last show, and we'll continue to look at, the location where he first instituted time, the sun going down and the evening coincide perfectly. There are 12 hours of dark. It starts at 6 o'clock at the location where Yahweh instituted time. There are 12 hours of light or day part where Yahweh instituted time. Perfect 24-hour days every day still. What's different is we, mankind, got kicked out of the garden. Mankind is the one that strayed away from the first location or got exiled from the first location. And the further we got away from it, the further we got away from what Yahweh is showing us is his old landmark. This is one of Yahweh's old landmarks, the way he instituted time. We finally ended up looking at when the sun goes down and talking about sundown to sundown being a day and how we observe days. We no longer do that because Yahweh has shown us that there's still perfect 24-hour days at the location where he instituted time, and we should go back, not get further away from what Yahweh is showing us. Isaiah 45, and let's start at verse 18.
For thus saith Yahweh that created the heavens, Elohim himself hath formed the earth and made it. He hath established it. He created it not in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. I am Yahweh, and there is none else.
So here is Yahweh saying, I did this. I set it up. I said, after I formed the sun, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. I said it for the first, second, and third day. And I said it for the fifth day, and I said it for the sixth day. It wasn't a mistake that I didn't create the sun until the fourth day. The sun is not involved in Yahweh's institution of time. Yahweh understands clearly what he's doing. So what we have to do is come to understand clearly what Yahweh did. He says, I created Hashemayim. It says, Elohim himself formed Ha'eret, and he made it. He established it. So we have to get to the landmarks that Yahweh used to establish things. Remember, we're the ones that strayed away. We're the ones that have to come back to Yahweh. And Yahweh is showing us the way back. He formed the earth to be inhabited. He says, I'm Yahweh, I'm the creator, and there is none else. Verse 19.
I have not spoken in secret in a dark place of the earth. I said not unto the seed of Jacob, seek ye me in vain. I, Yahweh, speak righteousness. I declare things that are right.
Now Yahweh declares things that are right. If we don't declare what Yahweh says, we can be declaring things that are wrong. And when we were declaring, when we first came into the truth, we were taught that you observe days from sundown to sundown and sunset to sunset. We did that for years until Yahweh showed us that the Garden of Eden, the location, what's called the cradle of civilization, Sumeria, Mesopotamia, where he instituted time, there are still at the equator where the Garden of Eden was located, countries that are still there, and they have perfect 24-hour days, 12 hours of dark, which Yahweh called evening, and 12 hours of light, which Yahweh called day. Let's go to Isaiah 46. So Yahweh is the one that declares things that are right. He established it. He declares the end from the beginning. And the best we can do is get in line with what Yahweh said. Isaiah 46 and verse 10.
Declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure.
Yahweh declares the end from the beginning. So in Bereshith, in Genesis again, the first chapter, the first book of the Bible, he instituted and created time. Then here we are, way over here in what's called the last days, the last of the last days. And some of us think we're smarter than Yahweh, and we're going to tell Yahweh what he meant. We're going to say the evening means watch the sun and see when it goes down. And you can't, if your life depended on it, people like to use this phrase when it relates to other things, go in here and find sundown or sunset. It's not in the Bible. That's a hybrid, newly made up word that our modern generation has made up. Yahweh says, my Yahshua or my counsel shall stand, what he instituted. And he's going to do all his pleasure. Let's go to Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter. So when you're saying stuff like this, then people want to look at you like, hey, how could that be? Hey, it could be just like it is. Go and do the research and find out where the Garden of Eden was. Go and find out where they're looking to try to find some fossils and find something that's way back at here and way back there. And then you'll find out. And you'll see the Garden of Eden was at the equator. And there is a book, Encyclopedia Britannica Junior. You don't have to, you can get an encyclopedia, or you can go on the web and just find out how many hours are there in a day at the equator. Perfect 24 hours still. Perfect 24 hours. But these people that go to observing the sundown to sundown, they haven't even bothered to look to see how many hours are in a day. And we even discussed this with one brother, and he was saying, hey, it doesn't make any difference how many hours are in a day. Well, it does to Yahweh, because he instituted and said there's 24 hours in a day. We looked at the scripture last week where Yahshua said, are there not 12 hours in the day? He understood not just he's talking about a 12-hour day, but he's talking about the light part of a day. So there's 12 hours in the night part of a day, the dark part. It's us that have jumped to conclusions and made it say what it didn't say. Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 11.
He has made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he has set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that Elohim maketh from the beginning to the end.
So, some people would say, well, Yahweh says no man can find it out. You can't really understand it. He's talking about a natural man. He's not talking about people that have hooked up with him and he's given them his Ruach HaKodesh so that they can discern spiritual things. Yahweh's made everything beautiful in his time. And he set the world in our mind. And we can't understand the world unless Yahweh breaks it down for us. That's why he repeatedly did what he did in the first chapter, laying the elementary foundation. So he laid that elementary foundation so we can build from there. And you have some people that Hasatan has twisted around so much, they can't even get out of the first chapter of the first book of the Bible. They're going off theorizing all this crazy stuff about what Yahweh is saying. And the leader of the pack are people who are spiritually dead. They don't even recognize Yahshua as the Messiah. So why would you listen to somebody that's propounding a theory? Again, a theory is a supposition based upon ignorance of the subject under discussion. If somebody can't even figure out Yahshua is the Messiah and receive that, to me, that just lets me know, okay, I need to kind of throw out and you know, stop my ears to whatever else it is they have to say. Deuteronomy 29. As the man said, they're quiet. And that's good. Let Yahweh talk. Deuteronomy 29:29. And again, not picking on anybody, because we did it for years. Over 10 years. And Yahweh started showing us stuff. And he did a checkmate on us when he showed us. There's a place on earth, more than one, where there are perfect 24-hour days. And they coincide with the evening. So if you were at the Garden of Eden, you could say, okay, I keep the Shabbat from sundown to sundown. And you'd be right on. Although you should use the correct terminology and say evening to evening. But you're not there. So what you gonna do? Like the Ruach had said in the first show, some people say, okay, hey, just throw out the first 3 days of creation, then you'd be all right. Yahweh created the sun on the 4th day, so you just start counting on the 4th day, you'd be all right. Well, you go up there and tell Yahweh that. But I mean, in our zeal, as Yahweh showed us to go about and establish our own righteousness, we turned our back on Yahweh's righteousness. Let's find out what Yahweh's righteousness is, because that's for real. This stuff we made up is not for real. It's not going to get us anywhere with Yahweh. Deuteronomy 29:29.
The secret things belong unto Yahweh our Elohim, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law.
All the words of the law. When Yahweh takes us back to an old landmark, we're not supposed to say, hey, we're not in the land, so we can't observe Yahweh's feast days. Well, you need to do some more reading, because he said in all your dwellings, wherever you are. So that's the same thing that it goes with, you're not in the Garden of Eden, but in all your dwellings, wherever you are, Yahweh instituted time a certain way, and it coincides with a certain time. And there was somebody that was talking about, well, back then they didn't have clocks and they didn't have, that's a lie. They did have clocks. They had water clocks. They could tell like what hour of the day it was. They had all kinds of clocks. We're the ones where people assume we're so advanced in modern medicine. Come on, why are you watching the cancer center get on TV and advertise about come to me, because they can't figure out how to cure cancer? How come people don't know about herbs and all these things that Yahweh put out here that are for the healing of the nations? If we're so advanced and so far above, those people had clocks way back. I was looking at Modern Marvels, and this guy used something called a stone meter or something like that, and he was building something, and he was trying to get it precise, and he copied off of what the Egyptians did way back. What was it, like about 4,000 years ago? So that's a deception from Hasatan, talking about how advanced we are. The secret things, they belong to Yahweh, but there's some things that he's revealed to us that belong to us. And he doesn't want us starting the Sabbath too late, keeping the Sabbath too early. I remember I was at a job, and the job lasted till 5 o'clock. So during the winter, I went to my boss, and I said, I can't get off at 5. I'll come in and I'll work early, so then I can get off at, I think the sun goes down about 4:15, because I was earnest, I was sincere, but I was ignorant. I was working on a theory. For Yahweh, he respected that. But if I'm wrong, then I want to be right. I don't just want to keep doing something and I'm wrong. And Yahweh doesn't want me that way either. But I did. And they, let me be off. And then, when the weather would change and the sun would start, setting later, then I could work till 5 o'clock. I'm sure all of us have been through that. But I don't do that anymore. Because Yahweh showed me it's 6 to 6. And when you live in these crazy states where they fluctuate, it's 7 to 7. Let's go to Revelation 12. So we have to realize we're the ones that have been deceived. Yahweh was never deceived, never will be deceived. We are the ones that have been deceived. And it started with the first man and woman in the garden. At the equator, where time is still going from 6 to 6. And where the sun goes down at 6, which is called even, and the sun rises at 6, which is called day or light. Revelation 12. We got to recognize where we're coming from. We've been in deception. None of us can stand up and say, oh, I was never deceived. Oh, yeah, I always knew about that. You lying. You're lying. And there's still stuff that we don't know. And if we don't submit to Yahweh and resist Hasatan, we won't know it when Yahweh tells us it. Revelation 12, and let's start at verse 9.
And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
Okay, so that great dragon, he was cast out, which deceiveth only the people that don't know Yahweh in the world.
The whole world.
The whole.
The whole world.
The whole. That's why it says Yahweh called us out of darkness. That means ignorance. That means not knowing Yahweh's ways. That means not knowing who we were, not knowing our culture, not knowing when the Shabbat was, or that there was even a Shabbat, not knowing his laws, statutes, and commandments, not knowing that there were certain things that this body was not built to eat, to ingest. Unlike a little baby, if they crawl on the floor, whatever's on the floor, they're going to pick it up and put it in their mouth. That's how we were. And the people that we were following, we were just talking the other day about how they've made the filthiest things, the things that are not food to eat, made them a delicacy, and the world and people in ignorance are running after it. Every other commercial, you see the little lobster leg and the crab leg and the shrimp, and they think, okay, hey, if I'm gonna get Chinese food, I'm gonna get what? Shrimp egg foo young. I'm gonna get lobster this or lobster that. I'm gonna get me some crab legs. We're gonna have a party and then we're gonna cook these crab legs. That's deception. It said the great dragon, this is after the war in Shemayim, where Hasatan with his dumb self tried to take over. He's the old serpent, the devil, and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He not only deceived, but he deceives. He's still trying to deceive. He's still trying to push his agenda. He's still trying to make us believe Yahweh is not who he is. He's still trying to make us not see how Yahweh instituted things and how Yahweh does things. He's still trying to do that. That's why we're in a warfare. We always have to fight against that and resist him and submit to Yahweh so he can show us. Let's go back to Genesis. So we got put out of the first location. That's why we started thinking that we had to watch the sun when it said sundown to sundown. And Yahweh, when it said evening and morning. And Yahweh had us read 8 different references on the first show where these people were saying, we'll start our service at sundown, and then in parentheses they put 6 p.m. And some of them were Sunday church people. Some of them were Jewish people. But all of them, they used the word sundown, and then they said in parentheses, 6 p.m. So Yahweh wants us to catch up. And again, you find the word sundown, you find the word sunset in the Bible, and then you got a funny Bible. You don't have a Bible like the rest of us have. You have a Bible where somebody put something in there so they can push their own agenda. We're not here to push our agenda. We're here to push Yahweh's agenda, which is the truth. Genesis 3 and verse 22.
And Yahweh Elohim said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever.
23.
Therefore Yahweh Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden, to till the ground from whence he was taken.
24.
So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life.
So we got put out of the first location. At this location, which was at the equator, there's still perfect 24-hour days, 6 to 6. It coincides with the sun going down. But Yahweh called that evening. He didn't deal with the sun. He didn't create the sun till the 4th day. He said he drove out the man. And then he placed at the east of the garden cherubim, so more than one angel with a flaming sword. And the Ruach had said last week he only had to put him at one end because it was a tropical, lush forest. They couldn't get in any other way but this one east. And that's where he placed these angels, so they wouldn't come back. So it was impenetrable, like the Amazon rainforest. They couldn't get in any other way. Yahweh only had to block one way. It says he put it at the east, at the Garden of Eden. So we got put out. Then we started letting things slip as time progressed. Let's go to Hebrews 2. Yahweh hasn't changed. He said what? I'm Elohim. Hey, I'm Yahshua Mashiach. Therefore what? I change not. I'm the same today, yesterday, at the Garden of Eden, and forever. There's only 2 people in this equation, so who changed? We did. Yahweh didn't change. Hebrews 2. Got kicked out of the garden. Then we started letting things slip. Genesis 2 and verse 1. I'm sorry, Hebrews. Okay. Hebrews 2, I'm sorry, not Genesis. Hebrews 2 and verse 1.
Therefore we ought to give the more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip.
See, there's one thing about studying the truth, studying reality when Yahweh shows it to you. It says you have to give earnest heed. You have to hold those things close to your chest, close to your heart, and not let them slip. He said, if you've heard what Yahweh said, then don't let them slip. Don't let people talk you out of them. But now you got to recognize when you have truth. And as I said, we thought we had this truth for years till Yahweh let us get a concordance, till Yahweh let us start looking and finding out the English words and what the Hebrew words were and going back to the original languages. And lo and behold, when we went to look up about sundown and sunset, and we flipping and flipping, it's like, hey, it's not in here. So what kind of stuff is that? Like people tell you about, yeah, you know, in the rapture, and then they want to just, ooh, boy, I done hit a home run. Because the rapture is not in here. That word is not in here. Well, sundown and sunset is not in here either. See, now they want to choke your neck off because you're talking about something that we have assumed. And then you know what they say when you say that you assume something, you bring something back on yourself. You don't make yourself look good. Let's go to Isaiah. So we have to take earnest heed. In other words, in sincerity and in truth, find out if we're going to stand on Yahweh's word, are we really standing on something that's going to hold us up? Or is somebody going to be able to come and tell us one day, you know, and show us from Yahweh's word that what we're standing on is in reality something we made up. So we let things slip after we got kicked out of the garden. Then we moved on to assuming the darkness and lightness of the sky are the same as the evening and the morning. I know because I did it. I'm talking about myself. I'm not talking about anybody else. I assumed the evening and the morning were the same as looking at the darkness and lightness of the sky. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about Shelomah now, so don't take it personal. Why? Because we were estranged from our original languages. We didn't know Hebrew. And you got some people telling you now, hey, you don't need to know Hebrew. Yes, you do. Why? Because this is what this Bible is supposed to be based on. And the translators did the best they could. It was Yahweh using them so we would be able to read it. We don't speak Hebrew, so if this Bible, the only Bibles we had were in Hebrew, how are we going to find out what Yahweh said? Who's going to go into Hebrew school and take a course? And Yahweh had to get it into a language where we could read it and understand it. Then he said, okay, my child, now you're reading the Bible in English. Guess what? You can find out the word that it was in Hebrew. And when you go and you look up these English words from the Bible in Hebrew, Yahweh opens up a whole other world to you. You find out it's not just one word when you go back to the original languages that they could have chosen. They could have chosen sometimes 5, 10, 20, 15 different words. And you need to know. Don't just get stuck on the one word that you see in the English, because then you're blocking Yahweh from talking to you and telling you what he said. Isaiah 28, and we're going to read verses 11 to 12. So we were estranged from our original language, as we turned our back on Yahweh, the first man and woman in the garden. Isaiah 28, and let's read verse 11 and 12, please.
For the stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people.
12.
To whom he said, this is the rest wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest. And this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear.
So Yahweh said, with stammering lips and another tongue, another language, I'm going to speak to you. That's what he's doing now. We're speaking another language. We're starting to learn, some Hebrew words and use those words. We may not pronounce them correctly, but let's move off. At least we're trying to speak them, and at least we're getting the definitions. And eventually Yahweh will help us get it right. But it's not so important. The correct pronunciation of it is as understanding that in the English language is limited. Hebrew is an unlimited language. Why? because Yahweh is deep. And that's what he used to dictate this Bible in. Said with staggering lips and another language, he's going to speak to this people. This spiritual people that want to know what Yahweh said, regardless of who agrees with it and who doesn't agree with it. He said, this is the rest. It's like, oh, I finally found Yahweh. I found the truth. You'll have people that ask you as the years go by, oh, you still believe what you was believing way back then? Yeah, I found the truth. I'm resting now. He said, the weary. I was weary with looking around from Buddhism to this and to that. Came from Methodist, and then went to Buddhism, and then went to transcendental meditation. So now, he's causing us to rest because we found the truth. We found him. And we can be refreshed if we'll hear what he's telling us. We don't get the refreshing if we don't submit to him. Let's go to Exodus 23. He said they would not hear. So the majority of the people, Yahweh is talking and talking and talking, and they just tuned out. Or they're busy talking and talking and talking. Or just assuming that they know, so they're not listening. Hey, they figure I got that down. Can't even find it in the Bible. But again, they'll, run you down about talking about rapture. And no, we don't believe in the rapture. Not that theory, because that is not supported in the Bible. And the word is not in the Bible. And that's why we don't believe the theory about sundown to sundown either, for the same reason. So for years we were told that Esau did not keep the holy days on the same days that the Bible said, but we were using his calendar to figure out the holy days and see what they were. When we looked at the calendar, and when you look at it now, if you don't have a concordance and you're not used to going back to the original languages, you'll see words on the calendar that don't match up with the words in the Bible, because most of the words in the Bible are in English. Now you got a few Greek words and Latin words, and got a very few like Hebrew words that haven't been modified. We looked at it, but we didn't understand it, but we still used it for years. And from the Bible class that I came to, this was a calendar that they used as a basis to figure out when the Passover was, and Pentecost and the rest of the Feast of Weeks. Exodus 23 and 15. We didn't understand it, but we used it. And we ignored the Hebrew words pretty much.
Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month Abib. For in it thou camest out from Mizraim, and none shall appear before me empty.
Now we, might have went on a little bit about, the first month of the year is called Abib, and, and then I believe after they came out of another captivity, then they called it Nisan. And so, we heard about that, in the classes, but we didn't really hear. We might have heard, okay, the real name of the Creator is Yahweh, and his title is Elohim. And we didn't really hear much about Yahshua used. But looking at Esau's calendar, because he modified the words, we didn't really understand what they were about. But we were using his calendar for years. Let's go to 2 Corinthians 4. So we saw Yom Kippur instead of the Day of Atonement, like in the Bible. So in the Bible, you see the Day of Atonement. For years, we heard people talking about, okay, Yom Kippur, Yom Kippur. And that just went right over my head. And then years later, I found out Yom is day, but they spell it Y-O-M. But when you look at the concordance, it's Y-O-W-M. And they've done different things like that with just about all the words that are in the Bible. We saw Rosh Hashanah instead of blowing the trumpets, and that's got something to do with like the beginning of the new year, which is not, because the Passover or Pesach is about the first of the new year for Yahweh's year. So you see how coming up out of deception, we saw all these different things and we were looking at them, but we didn't really understand them. But Yahweh wants us to understand them, so he kept putting them in front of us. And then he had us start finding out exactly what they were talking about. We saw Sukkoth on the calendar instead of the Feast of Tabernacles. Let's look at 2 Corinthians 4 and verse 5. And this is how your walk is supposed to be. You're supposed to be moving on with Yahweh. And the more you understand, the more you're supposed to be changing and becoming and being. 2 Corinthians 4 and verse 5.
For we preach not ourselves, but Mashiach Yahshua, the Master, and ourselves your servant for Yahshua's sake.
So this is what we're in business for. This is what we're working for Yahweh for. Not to preach ourselves, not to seek our own reputation, but to put forth the Messiah, the Savior, and to let you know that we are servants of Yahweh. We're seeking truth. And the truth that Yahweh shows us, we're going to tell it. Verse 6.
For Elohim, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, has shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of Elohim in the face of Yahshua Mashiach.
So, Yahweh shine that light. Remember, we're coming up out of deception. And he's given us this knowledge. It's in the first chapter of the first book of the Bible. But you'd be horrified by how many people are still going on the assumption. And again, as I said, not only taking sundown to sundown and thinking it's equivalent to the evening and the morning, but now we've heard this craziness about the Sabbath doesn't even have a night part. I mean, Hasatan has some people so wrapped up in all these natural-minded things, distracted, just yakety-yak, yakety-yak, to stop them from hearing what Yahweh's truth really is. And just got them bound up, just like a spinning top. He just got them twirling around and around and around. Go to Isaiah 9. In our deception, we substituted, Yahweh didn't do it, we did it, the old landmark of the evening and the morning, that it related to the darkness or lightness of the sky. We did this in deception. Now the question is, you want to come out of deception. Yahweh wants you to come out. But again, he said, choose you this day whom you will serve. So it's always voluntary, all the way to the kingdom. Not once is Yahweh just going to, jerk your arm and say, come on. Not once. And if we're waiting for that, it's never going to happen. Isaiah 9 and 2.
The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined.
So we were walking in deception. We've seen a great light. We have to keep moving toward the light. And if we're moving towards something and it's getting darker, whoa, you're going opposite from what Yahweh is telling you. So they that dwell in the land of the shadow of death. This is the earth here, right here, people, where Hasatan inhabits. Upon them hath the light shine. So we're just following that light. And Yahweh, you can read scripture in his word, a verse in his word, for years. And Yahweh will do a little tweaking, and all of a sudden, whoa, that was there? I know I read that verse before, but didn't see it. Like when Micaiah read that Yahweh had a son, and I believe it's in Proverbs in the Old Testament. Talking about who can tell us the name of Yahweh's son. It's like, whoa, blockbuster. And that's for those people that's talking about Yahshua is not in the Old Testament and Yahweh don't have no son. Yahweh said, blow it up. That's the nuclear bomb right there. Forget the atom bomb. That's the nuclear bomb. Yahweh blew it up. I mean, he knew what people were going to say and going to believe. Let's go to Isaiah 50. Coming out of our deception, we did it, adopted the premise that the evening and the morning were the same as sundown to sundown and sunset to sunset. We did it. Yahweh told me to back up off that because he told me, hey, wherever I am, I'm supposed to observe time like he instituted it. And he didn't use the sun. Isaiah 50 and verse 11.
Behold, all ye that kindle a fire, that compass yourselves about with sparks, walk in the light of your fire, and in the sparks that ye have kindled. This shall ye have of my hand. Ye shall lie down in sorrow.
Yeah, you're going to lie down in sorrow because this is a spark. This is something that we kindle. Come up this sundown to sundown. And then some people say, okay, you know what? The Shabbat started, but, or it's over. I'll wait an extra, 5 minutes to make sure the sun is all the way down. This is Yahweh talking about it now. Those that kindle a fire. You compass yourself about with sparks like you got the real light from Yahweh. And again, Yahweh says he winks at that because we were just coming into this thing, even though we did it about 10 or 15 years. He winked at it, but he kept shining the light. He kept having us look at this. I remember the years when we would fast on the Day of Atonement. It seemed like we were fasting for about 40 hours. But it just like those days were just so long. Because the temple would start at 7:30, but we would leave home probably about 6:30 so we could make it in time. And so then we'd be fasting from 6:30 till about 8 or 9 at night. It's like, wait a minute, something's not right with this Yahweh. I mean, we did it, but Yahweh kept putting stuff in front of us. That's how he does when he wants you to see it. So they've compassed themselves about with sparks, like they got real light. He said, you walk in the light of your fire, not his fire. Yachanan said, you're going to be baptized with fire and Ruach HaKodesh. Come a real fire. But you got fake fire out here too. He said, the sparks that you've kindled, you made up this stuff. This you'll have in my hand. You're going to lie down in sorrow. Let's go to Psalm 63. So the words sundown and sunset are not even in the Bible. They're hybrid, man-made words. And when Yahweh led us back to the original languages, we saw the Hebrew word evening is not the same Hebrew word as for night and dark. They're not the same. And you can look it up in the concordance. Evening is found at number 6153 and 6150 and 6148. And dark is found at another place. So the Garden of Eden time, where the first location where Yahweh instituted time, every day starts precisely at 6 p.m. And it ends at 6 p.m. And Yahweh has shown us in his word this time that he instituted, starting in Genesis, first chapter, on the first page of the Bible. And what he does is he calls them watches. And he divides the day, and he talks about the first hour of the day, or the first hour of the night, or the third hour of the day, the third hour of the night. Yahweh's consistent. Sun rises in the east, it sets in the west. You don't never see the sun coming up in the west and setting in the east. Do you? I was going to say, if you have, I'll do like this man on the tape said, on this CD said that I'm listening to. If you say yeah, wait before you answer that. I want to take your picture. And then I'm going to blow it up. You said 24 by 36. And then I'm going to write under it, the biggest liar I ever seen. And now, what's your answer? 6 to 9 p.m. is the first watch, or the evening watch. 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. is the second watch. This is of the evening. People like to call it night. At the Garden of Eden, you can call it night. But if you call it night here, then people get confused. They start to thinking about the sun. 12 to 3 a.m. is the third watch. 3 to 6 a.m. is the fourth watch of the evening. And the day goes the same. 6 to 9 a.m. is the first watch of the day. 9 to noon, second watch. And you can see it throughout the Bible. Let's go to Psalm 63 and 6. So we've read this, but having that false theory about sundown to sundown, we couldn't perceive it. But now, and when you look at Yahshua's crucifixion, that's just a sledgehammer blow. That's the home run right there. Because Yahweh, all he does is talk about these watches. And they're like clockwork. 6, 9, 12, 3. Day and night. Psalm 63 and verse 6.
When I remember thee upon my bed and meditate on thee in the night watches.
So what's Yahweh talking about? Some people might think, oh, he's talking about, this watch that goes on your arm. But you see how language has changed? No, he's talking about the divisions by which he has divided and systematized everything. Psalms 119. He's talking about his creation time, which does not involve the sun. Psalms 119 and 148.
My eyes prevent the night watches, that I might meditate in thy word.
All right, and then I don't know if Yahweh has done it to you, but Yahweh sometimes he wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he'll want you to pray, or he just want to tell you something. He kind of likes 3 o'clock for some reason, but he does. Let's go to Luke, the 12th chapter. But this is talking about time, the night watches. Creation time, Luke 12. So we don't have to be scared to go in the New Testament. He does it from Genesis to Revelation. Luke 12 and 38.
And if he shall come in the second watch, or come in the third watch, and find them so, blessed are those servants.
So you see, he's doing that in 3-hour division. 12 hours in the night, 12 hours in the day. In other words, at the Garden of Eden, even and dark perfectly coincide. What we have to do is retrain ourselves, because some people think, and they've even stood here in the temple with us, and we blew the shofar and ended the Shabbat. And then they've gone on out, and we, have said shalom, and they said Shabbat shalom to us, because they still thinking that the Sabbath is still going on. Why? Because they're sun watchers. And again, I'm not picking on them. I did it for years. He shall come in the second watch or the third watch. And he says, Barak are those servants. Look at Matthew or Matthew 14. Matthew 14 and 25. We're just looking at Yahweh recounting this creation time. Next week we're going to look at the crucifixion, where he really narrows down how he instituted time again, confirms it. Matthew 14 and verse 25, please.
And in the fourth watch of the night, Yahshua went unto them, walking on the sea.
So we knew that was what, between 3 and 6 at night. Yep. Mark 6 and 48. So like, well, how come Yahweh don't just say, 3 a.m.? He is saying it. You just got to understand what Yahweh's saying. Hook up to Yahweh. He says it in the best way so we can get it. Like we were talking about, I believe it was last show too. Some people in the wilderness going to be coming and trying to tell Yahshua how to do stuff. When and he's going to purge out the rebels. And they're going to come up to Yahshua and have the nerve to tell him, no, see Yahshua, this is how we do this thing. This is how this thing goes. And what he going to do? Rebel, get out. Mark 6 and 48.
And he saw them toiling in rowing, for the wind was contrary unto them. And about the fourth watch of the night, he cometh unto them, walking upon the sea, and would have passed by them.
So we understand, again, this is between 3 to 6 in the dark part, in the evening.